So as you guys can see in this video, I'm up on the north side over by Montrose and Kedzie, walking around the neighborhood here in some of the side streets, man. And this is a neighborhood that's the territory of a gang called the Familia Stones. So if you guys have been on my channel since the early days, you've heard me talk a lot about the Black Pea Stone Nation and the Titanic Stones and the various groups of stones that are like black gangs, mainly on the south side, and there's a lot of stones over on the east side too. A lot in the Foster Park area, but there's stones up north too, even by like Wilson and Magnolia or by Truman College. So they're everywhere. But in the 1970s, a group of stones was started by some Puerto Ricans. Okay, and they at first called themselves the Puerto Rican Stones. And this gang is mainly today in the Albany Park neighborhood on the north side of Chicago, which is like the northwest side. Okay, like if you go up to Uptown Rogers Park, like head straight east of that. So they eventually changed their name though to the Familia Stones, and today, like a lot of gangs, the ethnicity of the gang it's still got Puerto Ricans, man, but I see a lot of Mexicans in it. To be honest with you, somewhat similar to the Latin Kings, started by Gino, and then it absorbed a lot of Mexican members, and today there's even like white members of these gangs too, especially up north. So there was just a bust of some Familia Stones that were being watched, okay, basically by the feds for quite some time. And there's a lot of lessons to learn from this story, man, because they assumed that one of their particular members was telling when that wasn't even the case, just based off of the circumstances that the police let him go after they caught him, like in the car, and they didn't even take him down to the station. So his fellow members assumed that he was telling when he wasn't telling. They just let guys go a lot of times, and that turns their own gang against them, because then they just jump to the conclusion that this guy must have snitched. Well, first of all, I'll get to this when I get to this part of the story, but there's a whole bunch of reasons why that isn't even possible for that to be the case, especially if you just get pulled over in the car. So anyways, man, getting onto this story. So the Familia Stones, their symbol is like the triangle, and you see a lot of them with the same symbols as the Black Pea Stones with the pyramid and stuff like that, man. They use a lot of the same symbols. So shout out to everybody in the Albany Park neighborhood too, man. That's a neighborhood that it's a nice area, very nice, predominantly Latino community. My uncle is from that neighborhood, been over to his house plenty of times, and it's, I would say today, like I said, predominantly Latino, but you still got a lot of white families and some blacks, so it's somewhat diverse, but I'd say overall it's a Latino community with Latinos from all different countries in Latin America. But anyways, they said that 11 gang members have been charged with selling crack cocaine in the Albany Park neighborhood on the north side using a telephone hotline to make deliveries. So this is quite interesting, man, because using a telephone hotline, this gives the feds like a reference point, right? Okay, so you've got an actual phone number where people are, calling to get this stuff, and it's not just a thing where you're kind of out there on social media, or you're just out there on the street and they have to basically go off people's word. You've got an actual phone number that they can call. So the drug ring that was known as Del Toro, or DTO, they said distributed narcotics at all hours of the day, 7 days a week. And some of the guys that were busted in this were from my old neighborhood. If you guys see, on my old channel a couple of years ago, I'd show you guys where I was from, Harlem and Diversey. Some of these guys were actually from over there, but they were part of this gang that was doing this crack stuff in Albany Park, man. And it just goes to show how the drug thing still has its tentacles everywhere in the city. But according to federal agents, who said they monitored phone orders between 8 a.m. and 2 a.m. So again, they had this on the phone, so it made it easy for the feds to monitor the stuff, man. All they have to do is tap the phone. They don't need anybody to snitch, nothing. They said that a minimum order taken over the phone was for a dub or a baggie with $20 worth of crack cocaine, according to a criminal complaint, which said that some customers placed orders for as much as $400 worth of cocaine. Some customers appeared to have a regular order and would just call to set a time and place for the meeting. The Fed said on average the Del Toro was selling at least approximately 4.29 grams of cocaine base per day over the course of approximately 335 days. So they were watching these guys for almost a full year. And in all, the ring distributed at least 1,437 grams of crack cocaine between December 2021 and November of 2022. Two ring members were charged with murder during the investigation. So this is the big part of the case. A guy named Alexis Del Toro was arrested on April 5th, 2022 for a murder in December of 2021, and a guy named Hader Garcia was arrested around the same time and charged with 2 counts of murder. So the others in the complaint are a guy named Ed, and his street name is Finn. This is a white guy. I think he's Polish. Shout out to all the Polish homies out there, man, who was a member of this gang. And like I said, they've got members of other races. 2 guys who I think are brothers. I'm not sure about that, though. A guy named Freddie and a guy named Brian. A guy named Alex, Ruben, Karina, Kevin, Jonas, and Yesenia. And they're all charged with possession with intent to deliver cocaine. So they had females with them, too. Well, the interesting part about this, they had strong suspicions that the police were onto them this whole time, and yet the operation continued. And I don't mean the police's operation, I mean their drug selling operation. So they're reporting that undercover cops and the DEA made about 53 purchases of cocaine, also heroin, and I guess, I don't know any other drugs were in part of it, but cocaine and heroin at least, as part of this investigation. And the investigation was called Operation Bullpen. And they said investigators, quote, tapped the delivery hotline. So the feds, they shut down the hotline eventually, and they seized the cocaine and several firearms from various defendants, they said, according to a press release. And this was put out by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago. So 1 crew member remains at large, but the rest were arrested last week. Some of them are in state custody. Some of them have just been arrested by the feds. So Hader Garcia, the guy whose nickname is Lewis, he's been in jail actually since February of 2022, and this is on something else, and he's awaiting for trial for a list of crimes, including carjacking, 1 particular murder, and an attempted murder. And Alexis has been jailed since April, and he's accused of killing another driver shortly after completing a drug transaction in North Park. And North Park is again on the north side of Chicago. That's the name of the university that's over there too. It's like Albany Park neighborhood. It's all like the same general area. So and these neighborhoods too, like they're not really known for being that bad. I mean, North Park, like that's a pretty decent area over there, man. During the arrest of one of them in the murder case, police allegedly found various drugs, and this is being reported by CWB Chicago. The drugs were packaged for sale. They also found ammunition and 3 guns. And when they searched his home, they found another gun and almost $30,000 in cash that the feds described as, quote, suspected narcotics proceeds. So whether or not it's actually dope money, they didn't say, but they said they suspected that. So a 115-page federal complaint said the brothers directed most of the other defendants to complete deliveries that customers placed by calling that delivery hotline. So I don't know how you guys see, most of this stuff happening these days, man, but most of the younger guys that I see these days, like they're selling the pills and that, the ecstasy, the lean, that kind of stuff. The majority of it, I see either networking through friends, and it's not like one particular hotline. It's like, this guy knows this guy, and then he knows somebody else, and it's just kind of like social networking like that, or on social media. I see them all over social media with this stuff, man. I got this for, this price. I got this, that for that. And they're posting this stuff on Instagram and Facebook, everything, like talking about I'm pulling up right where you at. But anyways, man, so 115-page federal complaint said that the brothers were the ones directing this. And on July 5th, the wiretap conversations said that one of the members might be preparing to shoot somebody. Okay, so the police officers then tried to prevent the potential use of a firearm. So they were trying to step in, and this is the part where things really get tricky because the gang took this the totally wrong way. The police were, wiretapping them. They heard them discussing this one particular guy might be about to shoot somebody. So they had to step in before the investigation was over in order to prevent him from shooting somebody. So they pulled him over, okay, and they found a gun in his bag. They took the gun and then they let him go. Like the investigation was not completed. And I don't know if he had the gun legally or not. It didn't say. So they let him go, right? Even though nothing happened, like he didn't snitch, nothing. But after that, they heard the other members on the phone discussing the incident, okay, discussing the fact that that other member had been let go. And the one guy said, I'm going to tell you something crazy. And he said, they let that guy go. And the other guy says, what the F? He goes, no. And then the other guy tells him, he says, he didn't even go to the station, bro. So as CWB Chicago reports, they then discussed the possibility that given the circumstances, that one particular member might be cooperating with law enforcement. even though that was just like, they literally just jumped to that conclusion, and they didn't know, but they were guessing that, like in the phone conversations. Now check this out. This is the important part I want to point out to you guys. They suspected that he was telling just off of the fact that he got let go right there in the car. Now, that for one doesn't even make sense, because if he told, okay, you know for a fact he wasn't on papers if they didn't even take him down to the station. They just, like, he didn't sign papers in the car. You see what I'm saying? Like, they didn't interrogate him, present him with, the evidence against him, and then, put these numbers in front of him and put the papers there for him to sign, and then he signed on, sign on the line. That didn't happen during a traffic stop in the car. He would have had to go down to the station at least for that. Okay, yet they jumped to that conclusion. So if he's not on papers, okay, then he may have just given him a verbal tip. Okay, they may have like suspected that. He just, told them, okay, well, this, and that. But that's not going to get him set free. Like, there's no deal that you can make just verbally. Any actual agreement that's going to get you off the hook, it would have to be, something you would have to sign. Like, that would have to be in writing. I mean, you can ask any lawyer. You're not just going to tell the cops, oh, yeah, this guy so-and-so, did this, and that. And then they're just going to say, okay, you can get out of here. Like, your lawyer or the police, the prosecutor, neither one of them can use that. That's just like a verbal statement unless it's recorded. Okay, but the recording would have to be done, like, again, probably at the station. Like, they're not going to have like a recorded conversation like right there and then try to use that as evidence, even if it's on body cam. Like, that's not something that police would typically like present to a prosecutor and say, like, okay, we got a solid case against this guy because he snitched on his homie, like, while the body cam was recording. Like, I've never heard of that happen. Like, anything that's official that they would be able to use against the gang or against another member, they would have to take you down to the station at least, So they're jumping to the conclusion that this guy snitched, just jumping to that conclusion. Now, that's a reputation that could get him whacked, right? There's a lot of guys that'll kill you just off the suspicion. So you're part of this quote unquote family, okay, that's going to just assume and assume in a situation where it doesn't even make sense that you're a snitch, and that could possibly get you whacked by your own quote brothers. See, like, when I was coming up and I was seeing this type of stuff, I was like, this ain't for me, man. Like, and I don't see how the kids today don't see this, man. Like, your own gang is gonna like do this to you, like, just assume some stuff, that's gonna totally ruin your life and possibly get you killed. So in September, after cops stopped one of their customers and they seized the crack but didn't arrest them, those same two guys then discussed the possibility that law enforcement was onto their operation. And one of them, he said, quote, "They're watching, Mo." He said, and Mo, by the way, that's not his name. The Mo's, that's another name for the Stones. And I guess the Familia Stones like use that term too. But if you hear somebody's, like, they refer to each other as Mo, the way the Four Corner Hustlers call each other foe, or the GDs call each other folks. Every gang has like this thing that they call each other. The Kings will call each other King. But yeah, the Stones call each other Mo. So he says, they're watching, Mo. He says, Foster and Pulaski, Mo. I seen J-Dog, and they was coming out the grocery store already. Boom, and they stopped him. They were like, come here, boom, boom, handcuffed him and everything, took his $20 and everything. So they were on the phone talking about, like, they were right there waiting for us. Like, how did they know we were going to be there? Like, that's the implication. Like, they were already right there. So something has to be going on. They got to be watching us, So they were starting to get suspicious. Now, at that particular point, if they had stopped, okay, this is one of the what ifs, and I hate to ask these what if questions, like woulda, coulda, shoulda type stuff, but if they had stopped at that point, would the case have been conclusive enough for them to all get booked? If they had suspected that the police were onto them and then they had just stopped, like, would it have been okay? Would they still be free today? That question perhaps has no answer, but we know they didn't help by keeping it going, right? Or by keeping it going like in the same way, same location and all that kind of stuff with the hotline and everything. Now, whether or not they stopped the hotline after that, I don't know. But man, just keeping the operation going like business as usual after they were seeing the signs that the feds were watching, that ain't, going nowhere but off a cliff, right? For all the people that were in this gang, some of these guys were quite young, to just say, like, I've had enough, I got to jump ship before this ship goes down. Okay, you see the feds are closing in. I've seen this time and time again. Like, the whole crew goes down together. When it's clear that the ship is about to go down, it becomes apparent that the feds may have you guys tapped, that they may, be checking your social media. They may have your account hacked, your phone hacked, and then things just keep on going. For those of you guys who are in, gangs, I know I got a lot of gang members that watch this channel. That's one thing, okay? I get, the reasons guys say they gangbang, all that stuff, okay? But that's one thing, like, even to this day, I don't understand. But for people, like, that just keep on going after it's clear the feds are on you, like, what's the logic behind that? So they got these 11 Familia Stones. Now, the Familia Stones are a deep gang, man. You guys can see them walking around. This is just part of their neighborhood. They have, like, the whole area around, like, Montrose, a little bit east, though, of, like, Montrose and Kedzie. You go west of that and you actually into like SK, and then that's folks, and then you go a little bit west of that and you're in the Simon City Royals territory. So and they beef with all the gangs, all the folks gangs around there. The Familia Stones are finball, okay, just like the Blackstones, so it's basically like a Hispanic version of the Stones, and it's kind of similar to the way the SGDs are a Hispanic version of the GDs. So that gang continues over there in the Albany Park area. They got a big area over there, but it's at least a signal to everybody else, that even like up north where the dope money's not like anywhere near as heavy as it is out west, the feds are still on it. Like, they're still watching, man. And like, guys can sit there and like look at what happened to them and then ask, is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? Like, were they really making that much money? Because like, guys weren't buying mansions and everything out in the suburbs with this stuff. I mean, some of these guys out west, like, they've done that. But, I mean, these guys weren't doing that. At least not according to the evidence. So, was it worth it? Like, it seems like the life that this was getting them wasn't better than, like, anything they could get just working at, like, Costco or something. And that's what I see a lot of times, man, with some of the stuff. Because even with you making a lot of money in the dope game, it's not money that you can spend in certain ways, right? Because anything that's going to show up on a tax form is going to attract the attention of law enforcement. Okay, you're unemployed, but you're buying all this stuff. Constantly having to look over their shoulder for the feds, and that day is coming someday. Like, John Gotti said this. He's like, he was spending all this money like crazy, his son said, and he said the reason was, he knew he was going to jail. So, I mean, guys can look at this and ask the question, is it worth it? Well, even from a material standpoint, man, to me, it's just like, man, you could have just like worked at Costco and had the same life and you'd still be free. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know, man. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, though, man. There's your boy, Winnie C. Report. I'm out.